Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at the under £400 gaming PC. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we're taking a look at a budget build we've done very recently. This was actually assembled in a live stream we've done, which we'll link to. It's a pretty long stream, best part of 2.5 hours or so, so if you've got a bit of time, you want to have a cup of coffee or have a sandwich, actually probably make a roast dinner and watch it, you're more than welcome to. It was quite a lot of fun, and we did find out quite a lot about this actual case itself. Now obviously, this £400 build PC, you don't have to use this case if you don't want to. I'm using this as a kind of like a template. So obviously there is going to be a PC part picker list, and also there will be affiliated links in the video description for all the bits that we're using. And also you can feel free in the comments to let us know your comments. Let us know what you think, what you'd change, what you would have different, maybe different cases. If you find some particular components which you find a lot cheaper or much more beneficial for that sort of budget, please do reach out to us in the comment section. It is massively appreciated and obviously will help other viewers as well. So anyway, in this video we're going to take a look at the £400 or under gaming PC. Now, as the sharp-eyed amongst you will probably realise already, there's no graphics card in here. And there is a good reason for that, is because we couldn't fit it into the budget. Not with a new system. If you're going with a used system, then potentially you can pick up a system with a graphics card pretty easily for this sort of money. But if you're one of those people that likes to build things from brand spanking new and you want to have your warranties, your receipts and all that kind of stuff, or just claim back business expenses, potentially that might be something you're interested in as well, then this for £400 is pretty much the best that I can personally do. Again, if you can do better, please do let us know. So the key part of this is the Ryzen 5 5600G, which is actually an amazing little processor. I didn't realise actually back in the day when I first reviewed it, it was around about £250 in, so that does have a bit of a bearing on it. At the moment now, we can pick this up for somewhere in the region of about 130 from a lot of places. Amazon.co.uk here in the UK, sell it for 130 posted. So again, Amazon warranty as well. Awesome stuff. So basically half the original price. And it has got some pretty stonking performance. Getting over 10,000 points in Cinebench 23, which beats my Ryzen 5 3600, bizarrely. Not entirely sure how that works out, but certainly does. There is obviously an improvement in the generations between the processors, even though this is kind of like a PCI Express Gen 3 setup with this particular unit, because it does have that integrated GPU, and the GPU isn't all that bad. If you just want to play some games and you're not particularly looking for triple digit figures in terms of frame rates, actually you can get some pretty decent performance out of this. Today we've done some tests with Fortnite, CSGO, Wreckfest and some of the other usual games that we play, which you'll see later on towards the tail end of the video, where I'll show you some actual real game footage. So you can see it's not just benchmarks, it is actually real game footage, me playing a game. You can see what the frame rates are actually like. So if maybe you do want to put this together, then potentially you can see how it performs and it may tick that box for you. And for less than 400 quid, I think it's pretty awesome. The case itself, in this particular instance, this is Gamemax's Abyss Mini, which has got that infinity glass front on it, which looks pretty stunning. It is a little bit too reflective for this particular studio setup, but still, there it is. Motherboard wise, we've got the ASUS B550M-K, which was graciously donated by Ugly Bob. Thanks, Ugly Bob. And also in there, we've got a 480 gig SSD, we've got 16 gigs of RAM, half decent power supply, at least for this kind of level of system. And overall, it's pretty quiet. At the moment, the system is essentially idling. It's probably in BIOS because I disconnected the SSD because I don't want it to be turned on and turned off and go crazy. So it's just basically doing its own thing, and it's pretty much silent. Most of it thanks down to that ID cooling cooler, which does particularly well and only costs about 20 quid. Of course, if you wanted to, you could omit that out of this altogether, save 20 quid and maybe put it towards that graphics card that you're looking for, potentially. Who knows? Anyway, with all that said, let's get over to the computer. We'll have a look at the PC part picker list and go through the individual components. Okay, so this is the saved parts list for the £400 entry-level gaming PC. This is November 2022, just in case you're wondering. And here are all the parts. At the moment, you can see the price is coming out just a shade under £400 at £392.59. And these are our components. There doesn't seem to be a lot of them. So we've got our Ryzen 5 5600. You can see the prices there. Currently, actually, you can pick it up from box here in the UK with free shipping and handling for £125.99 if you wanted to. I found in use this was normally around the sort of 4.3, 4.4 gigahertz pretty much all the time, especially in gaming, and performs really well and does actually do better than the Ryzen 5 3600, which surprised me quite a bit. In order to keep things cool, we could use the stock cooler. It's absolutely fine for this particular processor, but we've added for a little bit of colour and a little bit of future-proofing. So Amazon.co.uk are selling this at the moment for $19.99. That's ID Cooling's SE214XT. Nice little cooler, looks good, pretty easy to install. Good RPM range between 500 and 1500 RPM. Can't really fault it for 20 quid. Motherboard wise, we've gone with the ASUS Prime. There aren't any real frills on this, even though it is a B550 chipset. I have actually added on some extra embellishments onto the VRMs just to keep them a little bit cooler. Not entirely necessary, but you've got all the key things here. You've got an 8-pin EPS connection, you've got 4 RAM slots, you have got a graphics card slot should you want to use it, M.2 slots, both top and bottom, so for expansion purposes, no problems at all. It's basically a decent platform, and it seems actually incredibly stable. At the moment, motherboard prices are absolutely rubbish. This normally, realistically, should be in the region of about £60, maybe somewhere between 50 and 70. Currently, £90 most of the time. Even some places going up to as much as 127, basically £130 plus. Yeah, it's a bad time for motherboards at the moment. In terms of RAM's actually looking a little bit better, and with DDR5 coming out, things are starting to get a bit cheaper. We've got 16 gigs here for just a shade under £50. £25 for 8 gigs of RAM is pretty much where RAM prices tend to bottom out. Black Friday's coming up, or may have already been by the time you watch this video. Who knows what's going to happen, but around about £50 for 16 gigs of RAM for me is absolutely fine. When it comes to storage, obviously you can choose whatever storage you want. Storage is getting pretty good at the moment. We've got a 480 gig SSD here for $27.49, pretty decent price. Again, Amazon.co.uk. Even places like CCL are doing it for very similar prices, like £30 for half a terabyte drive. Not bad at all. Personally, I would say you might be better off actually going with a 1 terabyte drive, knocking off the cooler and doing it that way. You probably get more use out of the system, and it's a pain in the backside to change out a drive if you don't know how to clone them, etc, etc. So maybe ditch the cooler, take off £20 off of there, add that towards this, and you could probably get a 1 terabyte drive for somewhere in the region of about £60. So if you can grab a few extra pennies from back of the sofa, it might be worth doing that. Case wise, we've gone with the Gamemax Abyss. This is the mini version, H608. You can go with another case, you don't have to use this case. If you go into the case section with Micro ATX and sort by price, which you can do on PC Part Picker, you could go with something like the AeroCool Bolt, 25 quid, that gives you £25 back that you could put in towards your 1 terabyte SSD, which may be more beneficial. I don't know, let me know what you think in the comment section. Changing a case, changing an SSD, both of them pretty much a pain in the backside to do, but some of us like doing it, so you never know. Now, power supply wise, this one is a little bit of an oddball because it is the Corsair CX450M, the 2021 version. So that we actually picked up as a deal. That was £25 on, I think it was Amazon.co.uk. But again, you see power supplies all the time on offer. If for some reason this one isn't available, don't worry, easy to do. Go again into your PC Part Picker, sort by price, and Gamemax GP 500 watt you can pick up for £32. Colink Classic Power if you wanted to. AeroCool integrators, they're always a good shout, nothing wrong with those at all. And actually the AeroCool Cylon power supplies, they don't often list them in here, but they're also available semi-modular and generally quite good pricing. Of course, again, whatever you want to do, if you want to go for a Seasonic, chuck a Seasonic in there, but it is going to affect your budget. So that is pretty much it. Again, we will be putting this in the video description, so if you're watching this and you're thinking, actually, yeah, I'm kind of liking the look of that, but I want to tweak this a little bit, the link for this particular PC Part Picker list will be in the video description, so feel free to go on it, edit it, do what you want, save it. And if you want to ask us any questions, head over to the Discord, post your link there of your PC Part Picker lists, and we can evaluate them and give you any pointers should you need them. So there you go, that is the components needed to put this together, but when you've done it and you've got a finished product, what does it actually run like? Well, we've already mentioned already that the Cinebench R23 score, we're getting somewhere in the region of about 10,000 points, so that is a pretty decent start, and again, slightly better than the Ryzen 5 3600, which is in the machine behind me, which I use for streaming. I'm digressing, let's take a look at some gameplay. So let's start off with CSGO. Pretty easy game to run, although if you put some of the settings up a little bit higher in terms of the shaders, etc., then it can be a little bit more tough on these systems. We're going to be running all these games at 1080p with a combination of either low or medium. Potentially you might even be able to squeeze high in there if you want to. There are some titles where you can put it to high and it doesn't make a great deal of difference. I have also, for those of you who are wondering, I have set the BIOS to be set to auto in terms of how much allocated memory we give to the GPU. On this particular board, there is an option. You can actually allocate up to 8 gigabytes of RAM to the GPU, should you wish to. So if you put 32 gigs in here and you want to allocate 8 to the graphics card, then you can do. It's a bit pointless. I'd say probably 2 or 4 gigs would be fine, but setting it to auto will allow the system to allocate it dynamically to do whatever it needs to do. Anyway, so taking a look at CSGO, like I said, runs really nicely. I play terribly, but it looks really good. I have turned off anti-aliasing because that is one of those things which actually kills off performance on this particular thing. I have actually turned off anti-aliasing on this because I find it does hit performance a little bit. So if you want to have the 1080p with slightly better textures and visuals, you may have to put up with a little bit of a jagged edge in terms of anti-aliasing. Obviously, if you want to put anti-aliasing on, then yeah, swings and roundabouts what you want to do there. Moving on from that, let's take a look at Wreckfest. Wreckfest runs really well, and again, this is 1080p, medium settings. You can switch it down to low if you want to be honest with you. It makes absolutely no difference whatsoever in terms of visual quality in my particular eyesight, and, well, I think it looks great either way. And it plays really nicely. You can get up to around about 60 frames per second, 70 frames per second, which is absolutely fine for this game, and it still looks and plays absolutely great. Something of a slightly older AAA title, so Far Cry New Dawn. Again, just walking around in the wastelands there. And I did actually swap between some of the settings there, between high, medium and low. And again, if you want to change between the three, there's about 10 frames per second difference between the three settings. So the lower you go, you add another 10 frames per second. If you go down to 1080p low, then you're going to be getting into the 60s, 70s, maybe even the 80s frames per second, depending obviously where you are. It is a relatively open world game, so if you're in an enclosed environment, the frame rate is going to shoot up. If you're out in the exposed open, like we are in this particular gameplay, then clearly frame rates are going to take somewhat of a hammering. Now, I have actually not used any type of scaling or frame scaling, FSR, all that kind of stuff. These are all native resolutions. Time for a little bit of Rocket League. Now, Rocket League, again, this runs pretty much well on anything and actually was very enjoyable. We didn't get particularly high frame rates here because we were playing 1080p with medium settings, and it looks great. It really does. I'm one of those people where actually, in some instances, I do like to have the actual visual quality a little bit higher and substitute that for frame rate. In this particular instance, I have done that, and we're still getting reasonable frames. It's not hideous, and there is the occasional judder, which you do kind of expect with this sort of thing with onboard graphics, depending on the settings. If you turn your settings down very low, put a frame rate cap on, that kind of stuff, then it is going to be a much smoother experience. But for me, this was absolutely fine. Again, I played absolutely horrendously, and we ended up losing the match. And last but not least, let's take a look at the classic that is Fortnite. Now, Fortnite on this, when you're actually in the kind of the waiting section or the lobby, or I don't even know what they call it, just basically before you get on the bus, it's horrendous. It's choppy as all hell. But then I find that on my system as well, which is running a considerably more powerful graphics card and a considerably more powerful GPU, CPU combination, loads more RAM, etc. Yeah, I mean, it's still choppy as all hell. So this wasn't to be completely unexpected, although it is a bit distracting. But once you jump off the bus and get actually into some gameplay, it's absolutely fine, runs along quite nicely, over 60 frames per second generally, again, 1080p. The slider here, I think we set to maybe, I think it was 71%, but it doesn't, again, seem to make much difference. I did turn off motion blur because that's just horrendous, and the post-sampling as well, we've adjusted that, so that's turned off. It's a very, very playable experience. I enjoyed it a lot, didn't do particularly well, and yeah, eventually basically got bored and left. Anyway, there's some examples of gameplay so you can have a kind of a rough idea of what to expect. Now, obviously, if you want to know the nitty-gritty of how this processor performs with a specific game, hey, that's what YouTube's for. Search it, your chances are you'll find it. There's loads of examples of gameplay, etc., and various different degrees of minutiae of adjustment of the settings, high, medium, low, different resolutions, etc. So this is just a ballpark thing. Essentially, what I'm trying to get across is the fact that this is a £400 PC. It looks pretty nice. Got lots of fancy RGB, and it can play games as long as you temper your expectations in terms of frame rate and or visual quality. So let me know what you think about this one in the comments section below. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.